Welcome to a psychology lesson you never knew you needed. Taught by the most unlikely professor, a house cat. Meet Cat Boss. Cat Boss lives in what appears to be a human's house, but Cat Boss knows the truth. The human may pay the mortgage, but Cat Boss runs the operation. This isn't just a cute story about a demanding pet. This is a masterclass in behavioral psychology, specifically operant conditioning, one of the most powerful principles in psychology. And here's the twist. While humans think they're the sophisticated species, Cat Boss has been running psychological experiments on their human this entire time. What you're about to discover is that Cat Boss isn't just meowing randomly and hoping for the best. Cat Boss is using science, the same principles that psychologists use to understand human behavior. By the end of this video, you'll never look at your pets, your habits, or even your own relationships the same way again. Let's start at the beginning. One morning at 5 a.m., Cat Boss wakes up hungry. Cat Boss doesn't have a plan yet, just a need. So Cat Boss meows. The human wakes up, annoyed and groggy, stumbles to the kitchen, and pours food into the bowl. Cat Boss eats, and something crucial happens in Cat Boss's brain. A connection forms. Meow at 5 a.m. equals food. This is called positive reinforcement, one of the 4 pillars of operant conditioning. Cat Boss performed a behavior, meowing, and immediately received something desirable, food. That reward makes it more likely Cat Boss will meow again tomorrow. And sure enough, the next morning, Cat Boss tries again. Meow. The human groans but gets up. Food appears. Cat Boss eats. The neural pathway strengthens. By the end of the week, a pattern has formed so strong that the human doesn't even think about it anymore. The human just responds automatically. Congratulations, Cat Boss. You've successfully conditioned a human. But Cat Boss doesn't stop there. Cat Boss realizes this principle works for everything. Want the door opened? Meow at the door. Want attention? Meow at the human. Want the human to move from your favorite spot on the couch? Stare and meow. Every single time the human complies, Cat Boss is reinforcing the human's behavior. From the human's perspective, they're being a good pet owner. From Cat Boss's perspective, they're a successfully trained subject. But one day, everything changes. The human reads an article about not rewarding cat meowing. Armed with newfound knowledge, the human decides to break the pattern. Tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., the human will ignore Cat Boss. 5 a.m. arrives. Cat Boss meows. Nothing happens. Cat Boss meows louder. Still nothing. Now here's where it gets psychologically fascinating. Cat Boss doesn't just give up. Instead, the behavior escalates dramatically. Cat Boss meows even louder and adds new behaviors. Scratching at the door, knocking things off the nightstand, pawing at the human's face, jumping on their stomach. This is called an extinction burst, one of the most important concepts in behavioral psychology. When a previously reinforced behavior suddenly stops working, the behavior temporarily gets worse before it gets better. It's the organism's way of testing whether the reinforcement is truly gone or just delayed. The human, sleep-deprived and desperate, finally breaks. They get up and feed Cat Boss. But here's the critical mistake the human just made. They've now taught Cat Boss that escalation works. They've accidentally reinforced not just meowing, but loud, persistent, annoying meowing combined with destructive behavior. The next time the human tries to ignore Cat Boss will skip right to the escalated behavior because that's what worked last time. Even worse, the human has created what's called intermittent reinforcement, and this is the most powerful form of reinforcement there is. When a behavior is rewarded sometimes, but not always, it becomes incredibly resistant to extinction. It's the same principle that makes slot machines addictive. You never know which pull will pay out, so you keep trying. Cat Boss has now trained the human even better than before. The 4 types of consequences. Let's pause here and talk about the science behind what Cat Boss is doing. This framework is called operant conditioning, and it was systematically studied by psychologist B.F. Skinner in the mid-20th century. Skinner put rats in boxes with levers. When rats pressed the lever, they got food. The rats quickly learned to press the lever more often. Same principle Cat Boss uses, except the human is the rat, the meow is the lever, and the food bowl is the reward. Operant conditioning works through 4 types of consequences. 1. Positive reinforcement. A desirable stimulus is added after a behavior, making the behavior more likely. Cat Boss meows and gets food. Food is added, so meowing increases. 2. Negative reinforcement. An unpleasant stimulus is removed after a behavior, making the behavior more likely. The human hears annoying meowing, feeds the cat, and the annoying sound stops. The human learns that feeding the cat removes the unpleasant stimulus, so they feed faster next time. 3. Positive punishment. An unpleasant stimulus is added after a behavior, making the behavior less likely. Cat Boss scratches furniture, human sprays water. Water is added, so scratching decreases. 4. Negative punishment. A desirable stimulus is removed after a behavior, making the behavior less likely. Cat Boss bites during play. Human stops playing and walks away. Play is removed, so biting decreases. But Cat Boss primarily uses positive reinforcement because it's the most effective. Every time Cat Boss meows and gets food, sits by the door and it opens, or purrs and gets pets, those behaviors get stronger. Cat Boss isn't just getting what they want. They're systematically training the human's brain to associate specific cat behaviors with specific human responses. The human's brain starts anticipating Cat Boss's needs. The human sees Cat Boss walk toward the food bowl and automatically follows. The human hears a slight meow and is already moving. Cat Boss has trained the human so thoroughly that the human now predicts needs before Cat Boss even fully expresses them. This is the power of consistent reinforcement over time. But operant conditioning isn't just about what happens, it's about when and how often it happens. There are critical principles that make conditioning work. Timing matters immensely. Consequences must happen immediately after the behavior, or the brain won't connect them properly. If Cat Boss meows and food comes within seconds, the association is strong. If food comes 5 minutes later, the learning is weak or non-existent. This is why punishing a dog hours after they chewed your shoe doesn't work. Too much time has passed. Consistency also matters, but not always in the way you'd think. If the human feeds Cat Boss at 5 a.m. every single day without fail, the behavior becomes automatic. But paradoxically, if the human only feeds Cat Boss sometimes at 5 a.m., the behavior actually becomes stronger and harder to eliminate. This is intermittent reinforcement, and it creates the most persistent behavior patterns. Think about it. If a behavior is rewarded every time and then suddenly stops being rewarded, you learn quickly that it doesn't work anymore. But if a behavior is rewarded unpredictably, you never know if it stopped working or if you just need to keep trying. So you persist indefinitely. This is exactly what happened with the 5 a.m. meowing. Initially, the human reinforced it consistently, establishing the behavior. Then the human tried to stop, giving in only occasionally. This created the perfect storm, intermittent reinforcement that made the meowing virtually impossible to extinguish. Psychologists identified different schedules of reinforcement. Fixed ratio, reinforcement after a set number of behaviors, like a paycheck after working X hours. Variable ratio, reinforcement after an unpredictable number of behaviors, like slot machines. This is the strongest schedule. Fixed interval, reinforcement after a set amount of time, like a monthly salary. Variable interval, reinforcement after unpredictable time periods, like checking your phone for messages. Cat Boss primarily operates on a variable ratio schedule, the most powerful one. The human never knows which meow will be the one that Cat Boss really means it, so they respond to all of them. This unpredictability keeps the human engaged and responding indefinitely. Advanced techniques. Now let's look at some sophisticated techniques CatBoss employs. Shaping. This is reinforcing small steps toward a larger goal. CatBoss wants the human to serve fancy wet food instead of dry food. CatBoss can't just demand this overnight, so CatBoss shapes the behavior gradually. First, CatBoss eats the dry food enthusiastically, being a good cat. Then CatBoss starts sniffing the dry food and walking away looking sad. The human feels guilty and adds a little wet food. CatBoss eats enthusiastically and purrs extra loud. The human feels rewarded. Over time, CatBoss increases the expectation until the human serves only wet food. Each small step was reinforced until the human reached the final behavior CatBoss wanted. Shaping works because it breaks large behavior changes into tiny, almost imperceptible steps. The human doesn't even notice they're being trained because each step is so small. Chaining. This is linking a series of behaviors together into one smooth sequence. CatBoss develops a morning routine. Wake up at 5 a.m., walk to bedroom door, meow. Wait for human to wake, lead human to kitchen. Sit by food bowl, meow at bowl. Human pours food, eat. Each behavior becomes a cue for the next behavior, and the final reinforcement, food, strengthens the entire chain. Now the whole sequence happens automatically every morning without CatBoss having to think about each individual step. Secondary reinforcers. These are stimuli that become rewarding through association. The sound of the can opener isn't naturally reinforcing, but because it's been paired with food so many times, it now triggers excitement all by itself. CatBoss comes running at the can opener sound, even if it's opening human food. The human experiences this too. Notification sounds on phones aren't inherently rewarding, but they've been associated with social connections so often that the sound alone triggers a dopamine response. The Premack principle. This states that a high-probability behavior can reinforce a low-probability behavior. In simple terms, you can use something someone wants to do to get them to do something they don't want to do. CatBoss uses this brilliantly. The human wants to sleep. CatBoss wants food. CatBoss meows until the human can't sleep. The human feeds CatBoss to restore the ability to sleep. CatBoss has turned the human's desire for sleep into a tool for training the human to provide food. The wisdom of CatBoss. So what can we learn from CatBoss? CatBoss demonstrates that operant conditioning isn't manipulation, it's communication. It's how all organisms learn to navigate their environment and relationships. CatBoss needs food at 5 a.m. and has no other way to communicate this need. Meowing is CatBoss's language. The human responding is the human understanding that need. Both CatBoss and the human are training each other. The human trains CatBoss to use the litter box. CatBoss trains the human to provide food. This is mutual shaping how relationships actually work. The key is consciousness and intention. We're all using operant conditioning all the time, whether we realize it or not. The question is, are you using it deliberately and ethically, or are you being shaped by forces you don't understand? CatBoss succeeds not through force or dominance, but through understanding behavioral principles and applying them consistently. CatBoss reinforces desired behaviors, provides immediate consequences, uses the right schedule of reinforcement, and works with not against natural inclinations. These same principles can help you break bad habits, build good ones, improve your relationships, understand why you're addicted to your phone, train your pets more effectively, raise children more thoughtfully, and generally navigate the world with greater awareness. Because here's the ultimate lesson. In the relationship between CatBoss and their human, both believe they're in charge. The human thinks they're caring for a pet. CatBoss thinks they're training a human. The truth? They're both right. They're both constantly shaping each other's behavior through the universal principles of operant conditioning. And now that you understand these principles, you'll start seeing them everywhere. In your own behaviors, in others' actions, in the design of the apps you use, the workplace policies you follow, and the relationship dynamics you navigate. Welcome to Cat Boss's world. Once you see operant conditioning in action, you can't unsee it. The question is, will you be like the human, unconsciously shaped by behavioral contingencies? Or will you be like Cat Boss, deliberately and skillfully applying psychological principles to create the outcomes you want? The choice, as always, is yours. But Cat Boss knows which one leads to breakfast at 5 a.m. Thanks for watching.